All praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. And this is just going to be a video on some things that I noticed when I watched the Chris Eubank versus Benn boxing match, right? And one of the first things I can just point out quick is there's proof from that fight, in my opinion, man, that that like men naturally are what their father's nationality is, man. Right? Because Benn acts a lot like his dad, right? And when there was like a moment before the fight took place, like when they was like preparing in the corners after their ring walks, and they both was in the ring, and I seen Benn like do some quick like head movement and lean and bob, and he got very low to the ground and then sprung back up real quick, and I was like, raw, this is gonna be a good fight, man. Because to be able to bob and weave and get that low to the ground while your feet are flat and you're not on your heels is very, very difficult to do, man. Like even to do a deep squat in general is very difficult to do. And then to do a pistol squat and things like that, that's very difficult. I've never been able to do a pistol squat, but if there's any brother out there that can, they'll know that that's a very hard physical movement to do. Like if a brother's into calisthenics or anything like that and they can do a pistol squat or something like that, like that's one of the higher levels of skill moves, right? So that's one thing I noticed, is that men naturally become like what their fathers are like to a certain degree, man, and then men carry on this carry the spirit of their father a lot of the time, man. Right now, the next thing I noticed is that obviously based, you can see this ring walk on the screen, is that men need their father, right, when growing up. And I remember when I used to be like around like I ain't gonna say the age, but it was around like a decade and a half and a bit ago, right? And I remember hearing a story about Chris Eubank Jr. that he got into a fight, right? There used to be a video where he got into a fight back in the day, and like the person pulled out a blade on him and something like that, right? And I saw the video. The person pulled out a blade on him and tried to like basically, you know what I mean? Tried to touch him up with the blade that they pulled out, and he wasn't scared at all in that fight, and still punched the geezer up, man, and was chasing him down the street, punching his face off. Right? I remember seeing that video back in the day when I would have been a teenager, and I believe that Chris Eubank Jr. himself at that particular time would have been a teenager as well around that time of that video. I remember that video, right? But his dad ended up sending him away because of that, I believe, to America, right? And then he was able to focus more on his whole boxing career, right? And if you look at the way how he acts exactly the same way as his father. He jumps over the rope like his father does. He talks like how his father does, but he does it in his own way. He's stoic, like how his father's stoic, right? Chris Eubank Jr. and Chris Eubank, they're very stoic men, right? The way how that whole press conference was leading up to the fight was very stoic, and that's because of his father, right? Now, on another note, I was watching another point on that same point I just made there about how men need their fathers. I was watching the Club Shay Shay, right, with Shannon Sharp, and it was Terence Crawford, who I think is a very good boxer as well. And Shannon Sharp kept asking him questions like, "Oh, do you think your mother did this? Do you respect your mother because your mother did that, this and that?" And I was started getting annoyed when I was watching it. Like, man, why is this guy praising up this man's mum so much when his mum used to tell him that he ain't gonna be shit? And he said his mum only recently said that she's proud of his achievements in his career only a couple of years ago. These times the guys did all these things, bought a houses and all these stuff. And then Terence Crawford was saying in the video, like, the reason why I used to be bad when I was a child was because my father wasn't around, and I used to act out and do all of these things because my father wasn't around and there was nobody to basically show me the man way of doing things, right? So then Shannon Sharp asked him later on, or how do you think that you mentioned your father earlier? How do you think things would have been if your father would have been in your life? Do you think you would have like not did boxing, and you wouldn't have been getting into so many fights, and you would have ended up doing something else in your life because of not having your father around. And he was like, no, I think I would have definitely still did the boxing, and I would have still become a world champion, but I would have been more successful. And then Shannon Sharp was shocked by him saying that. And if you don't believe me that this took place in the interview, just watch that interview, man. I was watching it on and off. It's like a 3 minute, I mean, not 3 minute, like a 3 hour interview, right? Where they like do a bit of boxing before and then they're just talking. And I ended up watching like maybe 90 minutes of it. But when I was watching it, I was just like, man, this world loves praising up women, you know. It loves praising women. These times, the genetics that made Terence Crawford be what he's like, which that guy is very strong, man. And we saw what he did to Errol Spence. Like, that guy is a very good boxer, but that's from what his dad's like, because his dad, Terence Crawford said his dad was in the military, right? But Terence Crawford said, I would have been more successful. I would have been more successful if my dad was around. He said that. But Shannon Sharp was shocked by that, because this world tries to downplay men like we ain't nothing. Floyd Mayweather, who and many people say is the greatest boxer of all time, what made him? Would Floyd Mayweather have been a better boxer if his father didn't go to jail for the time that he did and ended up not having that time with him? Or would he have been worse? He would have been more successful. Floyd Mayweather himself. He would have been, and he was raised in a boxing thing by his uncle, by his father and his uncle. That was like, people used to mock the way how Floyd Mayweather did pads. I remember when Ricky Hatton was fighting him, he tried to mock the way how he did pads. But Floyd Mayweather ended up whooping his ass so bad that when Ricky Hatton started coaching people in boxing, he now does the same pad work techniques that Floyd Mayweather used to whoop his ass, right? But men need their, like, when I watching this, it just made me realize even more that men need their fathers. And you Israelite women out there that have kept children away from their fathers, and the daughters too, right? You've destroyed your children because you was disgruntled, because the man, so-called, according to your level, what understanding, so-called cheated on you. But then what about all the men that you've committed adultery on? What about all the men that you've left and went on to monkey bench to another geezer? What about that? You got anything to say about that? A lot of men that are Hebrew Israelites right now will have a story about a woman that's committed adultery on them, or that just bounced out of nowhere, didn't want to know anymore. So what about that? But women are always so grieved by what they perceive as an offense against them, to the point where they don't ever think about the offenses that Dave did. Chris Eubanks, a boxer, was able to do all the things that he did in the ring in this fight because of his father. Benn was able to do all the same things in the ring that he did, also likewise because of his father. And this world's so wicked that when a father who was a world champion, right, wants to help his son in a career, in a sport, or in a job, let's not even call it a sport, in a job that he knows well, people try and say, oh, he's trying to overtake and overshine his son's career. What are you on about? He's helping and guiding his lineage to be good and be great in something that he has shown that he can be great in that thing already before. So what's the problem? But this world don't want a man to help his son. It wants a man to not even care about his son, man, and it's disgusting. Right? Now, another thing that I noticed in this video as well is that, like, through watching this fight, was that, like, when I was watching this ring walk, there was a moment where I thought Chris Eubank Jr. was going to cry, because he looked happy that his father had showed him an honor to, like, show up to the fight, man. And that's what we're going to do as men that are hoping to be of the elected nation of Israel, if Yahweh gives us an honor, right? And when you can watch things like this, you can see the principles that Yahweh's got in how he deals with things. You can see in our earthly realm, man, that a father and a son relationship is different than a father and daughter relationship. And both of them can be beautiful, but the father and son relationship is completely different, because a father is going to make his son go through harsh times in order to really correct his son, to make his son be something, because him making his son's life go too good is not gonna do his son any favors. Whereas how a father would deal with his daughter would be slightly different. They're still gonna be strict with their daughter, right? So that she's not a gather abroad, but they're not gonna have to do certain things with his daughter to try and correct her in certain ways because her husband's going to end up being her leader over her. But this society expects men to lead only for financial, right? Pay for every single bill, shut your mouth, don't tell me I can't go here, don't tell me I can't go there. But if I do go here and I do go there, I end up in a situation where my life's in danger, come and save me, and don't say, I told you not to go there. Just save me if I do the same thing again next time. That's what women expect men to do. That's the reality that they expect. And it's ridiculous. Right? But less on them. Back to some of the things I've seen in this fight, like Israelites, right, have got a heavy warrior spirit in them, man. And there was points in this fight when I was like, man, this guy's about to get knocked out. And then I was like, man, this guy's about to get knocked out. But Yahweh kept charging them up to not drop, kept charging them up to still throw a few more punches. And in even the last round, they were both throwing 3 and 4 punch, 3 and 5 punch combination. They were throwing combination punches even in the last round. Right? Even in the last round, they were doing that. From the first round to the last round, they're throwing a hell of a lot of punches, man. Because they was charged up in the spirit to be fighting like that. And that's what you Edomites out there, you don't understand. That's what's going to happen when you Edomites come for us. Yahweh's going to charge us up, man. There was many things that you can see in this fight that you're like, raw. Israelites have got a whole different thing than everyone else. Like, look at all the people that showed up to watch this fight. All the people that showed up to watch this fight. This fight was watched all around the world, man. All around the world, and you wouldn't see nowhere near as much aura around an event if it didn't have Israelites in there. If it was 2 Edomites fighting, it wouldn't have been this. It's not the same kind of thing, really. Not really. Now, some people might say, "Oh, Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, though, they had a bit of a thing going around their fight." I don't even believe that they're heathens. I believe that they're Israelites, and the proof is how much they talk about God. One of the things that an Israelite does a lot is talks about God. Even after Chris Eubank won this fight, he mentioned God. Now, I can't recall another Chris Eubank fight where he's ever said anything like that. But after this fight, he said, the first thing I want to do is give thanks unto the big man upstairs. He said something along those lines because an Israelite can't help but to mention God. All you Israelites out there trying to say you don't believe in God and all that stuff, you're lying. You still believe in God. Whether you're believing in some left-hand wicked ass stuff or not, you're still trying to seek something to make it be your God on this earth. Even all you people that want to talk all this, the universe stuff, you're still out here trying to seek a God for yourself too. And Paul even said it, right? That Israelites have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. Israelites have passion for God, but they don't always understand and want and seek out God according to the right way. So they end up seeking out their own righteousness. And that's why you've got some Israelites that are real close to having the name of the Lord, but they say Yah, right? Or they might say Yahweh, but really his name's Yahweh, right? But they're close because they got a zeal of God, but it's just not according to knowledge, so they ain't getting it the right way, right? They end up slipping a bit. Like there's many things, like even one thing I noticed is how proud, or if I can even use that word, how like happy Chris Eubank Sr. was when he saw his son receiving honor, right? And that's how what Yahweh's doing for Yahweh Shai, right? Didn't Yahweh say, "This is my son, in whom I am, my only begotten son, in whom I am well pleased"? He said, didn't the voice come out of heaven and said that? But that's what Yahweh ultimately wants for all of his sons and even his daughters, man. He's gonna charge up the nation of Israel and give us like a new way to where we can't even be dishonored. Like there's many points that can be shown from this fight, man, from what I saw anyway. Right? Even another thing that I saw from this fight was that ever since another nation besides Esau, I think this would be either Ishmael or Elam. There's this whole Riyadh season thing, right? And ever since they started taking over and like doing the fight promotions, you've started to notice how the events are way bigger. They had orchestras for this fight, right? They made like movie trailers. They've been making movies. This whole Riyadh season thing, they've been making movie trailers, man, for their fights. Like movie trailers, bringing out high level CGI, bringing out all these things to try and promote fights. But Esau, he ain't got that kind of thing because the other nations have all got more class and more swag than Esau, man. If you go to some Edomite part, which I ain't promoting no one going to no weddings and nothing like that. But if you go to an Edomite wedding, that stuff might be dead. But if you go to like some Elam wedding or some like Ishmaelite wedding, they might start playing some music of their own music that's gonna have a vibe to it, man. And if you already know it's gonna be, if you go to a Jake wedding, Israelites wedding, you already know what it's gonna be. But if you was to go to any of these other nations' weddings and stuff like that, right, or one of their big parties that they throw, forget a wedding, a big party that they throw, you already know that all of them nations are gonna somewhere along the line play an Israelite music, or they'll try and make a music of their style with an Israelite swag to it. They're gonna try and do that, man. If they could try and copy in like a lesser way, they would try to, because they know that we do it the best. We do it the best, man. All these other nations, they try and make out like, oh, we're just this and we're that. Nah, y'all know what it really is. All you nations know what it when it starts talking about being real, y'all already know we're the ones, man. And everyone can't be what we are. We're the ones, right? It's us. But all these other nations can do things better than Esau, though. They've started promoting fighting, boxing, and that way in a grander way than what Esau does. And even that guy Frank Warren, he's even had to mention it. He's like, mate, His Excellency, the way how they promote these fights is cracking, mate. I mean, I've never saw boxing done anywhere like this. And even Eddie Hearn's had to mention it. They've had to. They've had to, man. Whereas Esau's way of doing things, he's the most bland people that you ever seen, man. Like if you get some Jacob's cream crackers, Esau's just that cracker, right? Without nothing on there, not even no salt, no pepper, nothing, no cream cheese, no nothing on there, man. Nothing, just the empty, you know what I mean? Whereas if it's Jake, mate, we got all the seasoning on that. And then if it's one of these other nations, well, they're kind of doing their thing too. But we as Israelites, we're doing all of these things as the lowest nation on the earth right now. And yet, even though we're the lowest nation in like most of the categories on the earth, we're not the lowest nation in salt, though. We're still the top. And that's why, from two Israelites having a fight decades ago, right? I believe before I was even born, this fight ended up taking place now. And like the scriptures say, the rich man is honored for his riches, and the poor man is honored for his skill, and the rich man is honored for his riches. Had Chris Eubank Sr. have not been a professional boxer, right, he would not have been able to get no riches or no honor in this world, really. They wouldn't have really cared about nothing that he's got to say if he wasn't very good at boxing, man. But because of that, he was able to get himself some honor in this world. But let's say we was in our kingdom, how much more stuff would both of them have if it was in our kingdom, man? Because they would have just been mighty men in the army of Israel, and they would have received honor greater than what they received in this world, for damn sure. Right? And yeah, I just thought I'd speak about a few things that I saw in this fight, because the things in the world that we see are done, ultimately all of it is done with the kingdom of heaven in mind, really. It's all done with the kingdom of heaven in mind, man. There's nothing that takes place on the earth that Yahweh doesn't know about, and that's not for the end goal of the kingdom of heaven. Even the fact how much promotions made by, and how much like money can get made by the hatred of Israelites, right? They was really pushing that Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. should hate each other and all this. Why should they? Why? Why should they hate each other? Oh, born rivals and all of this stuff. What real need was there for any of them to not like each other? There wasn't one. There wasn't no need for neither of them to not like each other, to be honest with you. And even in terms of Nigel Benn talking about how he didn't like Chris Eubank and all that, yeah. But he later on in his later life, he started to dress like the geezer. To be honest with you, he started to dress like similar to how Chris Eubank dresses. To be honest, he started to ball off his face the same way and all that. So like, but that's not really what this lesson's about anyway. It's just like when you see how people are in this world, man. Like all these nations, really, they've got money and receive money from Israelites being against each other. Like people would have made hundreds of millions of pounds from this fight, man. And even before this fight, you had Lyndon Arthur against Anthony Yard, right? And then the fight before that fight as well was, I believe, Vidal Riley against someone I ain't really heard the guy's name before. But like there was like just money upon money being made off of Israel fighting against Israel, right? That about them trying to stop us from being a nation, right? So our name may no more be in remembrance, man. Whereas if we wasn't fighting against each other, then you nations would not be able to try and come up against us, because all the people that are Native Americans in the world, all the people that are so-called Mexicans, all the people from Dominican Republic, like there's a hell of a lot of Israelites on this earth, man. A hell of a lot of us. Right? All the mans from there wouldn't be no Nigeria and Ghana jollof rice beef. Oh, the way that they make jollof. And I don't even know the inner depths of all that, because I'm not like close to that. But yeah, I hear about some of that stuff some of the time, about how Nigerian guys have a problem with Ghanaians and that, but they're all Judah pretty much. Whether it be Judah, Benjamin and Levi, or Judah, straight up Judah. You know? So what's the real grievance, man? Like y'all ain't all gonna be in the kingdom anyway. You know what I mean? Y'all, none of y'all are gonna be the top lineage from Judah anyway, because that's the line of David. That's the top lineage in the kingdom of heaven from Judah, right? Which is the top lineage in the whole of Israel anyway. Judah's the top tribe anyway. So just be glad that you're from that at least, you know? But yeah, man, like there's a lot that when I just saw this fight, man, I was just thinking about a lot of things and going into and thinking about like how a father not being in his son's life has really destroyed or helped destroy our nation, man. But every now and again, when you see a lot of these fighters, some of the best ones always had their father around, to be honest with you. Some of the ones that carry themselves in like a way where they're at the end of their career, they still somewhat got certain things going on and that. A lot of them had their fathers around, and you'll notice that whenever their father is around, though, that people always try and say that their father shouldn't be talking about this and talking about their career, but then don't see a problem with a promoter that don't care about that man outside of making money with him. They don't see a problem with him trying to guide that guy's career. They'll say Eddie Hearn. They don't complain for Eddie Hearn talking up for all of his fighters, but then they have a problem if the fighter's dad starts talking about his son when the dad might have actually got in the ring and fought himself. If it's okay for Eddie Hearn to try to get asked, oh, so what's next for this fighter or that fighter, and then he can start spewing out 5 minutes plus time talking about, oh yeah, so mate, it's a mugs game and or whatever he's gonna say, yeah. Then why can't the man's dad, who got in the ring himself and fought and scrapped, shed sweat, blood, right? Why can't he talk for what could be next in his son's career when he's done it himself? But he's really to try and keep a man away from controlling his son's life and giving his son fatherly advice. And they mainly only do that with like Israelite fighters that have got their dad around, man. They don't really say too much about that kind of stuff if it's an Edomite. But then there ain't too many Edomites that do that, so they can't get to say it too much, because the Edomites ain't really the talent in boxing, man. It's Israelites. But I've heard people complain about that stuff with many Israelite fighters. I've heard them complain about it with Danny Garcia, heard them complain about it with Floyd, heard them complain about it with Teofimo Lopez, heard them complain about it with Chris Eubank, with Conor Benn. They always got something to say. But then when the promoters are talking, they ain't got nothing to say, man. Because it's about trying to separate a father from his son. You got to bind the strong man first, then you can conquer the nation. But yeah, that's enough of me talking, man. I was just trying to look at this whole thing and this whole event like in a somewhat spiritual way, man. And hopefully I did it, man. Right? Like there was a lot of things to see in this fight, man. And after the battle and that, then there was respect shown, right? Just like how in the spiritual sense of us as all of us as Israelites, right? What does it say in Romans 11? For the gospel, some of the Israelites are enemies for the gospel's sake, so that certain prophecies concerning betrayal and all of these different things can be done. And for the fact how the good news is that every Israelite's gonna be saved, regardless of what they've ultimately did in their lifetime, and that every Israelite needs mercy, right? Just like how in this fight there was kind of hatred between the two of them, eggs getting clapped off faces and all this kind of stuff. There was delays in the fight previously and all that. You know what I mean? There was a lot that went on. But then afterwards there was respect shown and you ended up being like, okay, that was an amazing fight. Well, when Yahweh shows why he made there be back and forth between the children of Israel, he's gonna show what the purpose of him doing that was for. And everyone's gonna know, and it says that in the last few verses of Ezekiel 14, that we're not no longer gonna mourn for Israel because we're gonna understand why Yahweh did what he did to us. We're gonna be like, okay, I understand now. I understand why you made our nation go through all of that. It makes sense now, right? It's gonna make sense why all of that stuff took place. But yeah, man, shalom to the elected nation of Israel, man. Shalom.